Everyone, and welcome to our first episode of Candid Conversations, a new show from KCAPC, where we are going to have candid conversations about the things that are important in life, getting through life, figuring out, different people, different types of people. And I thought that for our first episode, we would have a conversation about trans and non-binary individuals. Now, not everyone that you see on this screen here is trans and non-binary. Some of us are just trying to learn and grow, just like everyone else. I'm going to start with introducing everyone. We have Pink. Are you really going to go by Pink?
No, you can call me Jake. That's my Zoom name.
Okay. We have Jake. Jake has been, I've known Jake for a very, very long time. I've kind of seen him go through and grow into the young person that he is right now. And I'm so proud of him. The next person that we have is a just a beautiful soul, a guru. She is a health and wellness coach and accountability partner. She is helping the aspiring beauty become consistent in her health and wellness goals. We have Kendallin, or Kind K. Hi.
Hey.
Uh, we have Shania. Shania is a amazing resource for all things trans, all things leather. She is so knowledgeable in just everything, and as always a delight. Hi, Shania.
Hey, honey, thanks for having us.
I have my road dog, my buddy. They have been my friend since I moved here. We have Johnny.
Hey.
And then down there at the bottom, we have Miss Kali. Kali is also super knowledgeable in things. She knows a lot about a lot of things. And I wanted to have Kendall and Kali here really because I knew that you guys would have some amazing questions and some amazing insight on things. And that I wanted to have my trans and non-binary peoples. As a matter of fact, Jake, what are your pronouns?
He, they, and also still figuring it out. So,
Okay. And we're gonna start there. I want to start with the pronoun conversation because I think that's the thing that a lot of people in the beginning tend to have the most trouble with is what is this pronoun game, and I don't understand why it keeps changing. And um, I had to, in talking with my family about it, it was like it's too much, it's too confusing, and then people get upset when you get it wrong, But how am I supposed to know if you don't tell me, and all of that stuff. So, let's talk about and start there. I want to start with you, Johnny, because I think you and I have had many interactions. And I knew you prior to the transformation. So when I knew you, you were he him, and you have since transitioned over to they them pronouns, and are non-binary femme presenting.
Pretty much.
And so, kind of explain to us what that evolution was.
Oof. That's a lot of evolution. And this is one of those actually really good bits on the whole how things shift. I'm going to call out real quick that for me in particular, I'm one of the relative minority people I'm very adamant on they, them, actually. If there was like a neo pronoun, which we can hit that ball around in just a little bit, that like was like dominant of a thing that was like just a generic thing that people used for not he or she, I probably just use that. But nothing in that vein resonates with me enough to deal with actually having to explain neopronouns to people over and over again. So I don't. But so yeah, back in the day, Like it was just bisexual, male, what have you. I am of an age where growing up in the Midwest, that was not really the language wasn't there, the words weren't there, right? Like the whole actually like medical transition side of stuff, which is also me, like never occurred to me when I was younger because trans, like if you were trans, like assigned male at birth and you're transgender, then you're obviously a woman, right? And I knew I wasn't a woman. Knew I also wasn't a guy, but like didn't have the right words for all that together. And so like that kind of stalled me for a long time because uh literally was that whole like, well, I'm obviously not trans because I'm not a girl. So I guess we'll just kind of struggle along and just keep on keeping on. And all this other stuff is obviously just anxiety or whatever. And so like the last 10 years ish in particular has been a lot more aggressively looking at things, exploring things, sorting things out and all that, including like the extended couple years of like would swear up and down that I was gender fluid because I would present aggressively male at work and then come home and backlash on that and be aggressively femme at home and back and forth and back and forth. And it took a while where I actually took like a couple weeks off from work and just like, and all of a sudden it just stopped and became like mostly where I am now. And for me to realize what was going on. So again, it's a journey. And to your to your family's point, like sometimes it changes because you're still sorting things out. And sometimes when you're not cis in particular, or you're not like very aggressively binary trans, it can take a while and your pronouns may shift and you may use different words to describe yourself. That's okay. It takes a while. It's hard. There's a lot of journey to get to that destination. You may never actually hit a destination. Also, for everyone who doesn't know me, I'm a mad rambler. So I'm going to go ahead and stop now.
And so,
Thank
you. So Shania, I kind of want to talk about, ask you about your journey as well. You know, you are younger. You and Jake are probably the youngest two in the room. Child, but you know, you guys are younger, and so what was your journey like? And on top of that, do you think that, you know, maybe growing up in the era that you were, where trans visibility was a little bit more open to you, do you think that kind of helps you find yourself or be in the process of finding yourself where you are now easier?
Oh, definitely. Like, so I grew up in a Catholic family, and my sister came out to me as gay when I was like, I think I was like 12. But she also wore like a lot of hockey jerseys and short dyed red hair and hang out with a lot of girls. And like I already knew that. So, like, it wasn't shocking to me. And I accepted her and like I had no issues with it. And I was raised that you love everyone. And like a big part of my family had issues with that. And I think for a long time I just had all those deeply ingrained like Catholic beliefs, like, and I was totally fine with other people and accepting of other people that were anywhere in the queer spectrum. I was totally fine with it, loved everyone, but it wasn't for me. Like it wasn't okay. And so I never allowed myself to, like, for a long time, like growing up, going through puberty, like didn't allow myself to even entertain that thought. And as time went on, like I had all kinds of just issues with intimacy and sex and things like that. And I kind of wound up experimenting with, you know, sex with men, and that didn't, like, being gay didn't feel right. It never, like, I tried it out and like, you know, having sex with men was fine, but the thought of being gay and like being a gay man, like it never really connected. And it wasn't until later, until God, like college, when I finally got exposed to the language and the terminology and, you know, the culture, and understanding that there are different philosophies and different ways to look at gender, and actually understood people that were trans and had people to talk to and had like some kind of frame of reference. Because I mean, all I had was what you see on TV here and there. And up until the last few years, that representation has always been usually, you know, negative or, you know, eccentric to the nth degree, and it's not relatable. It's not something you can connect to. And it wasn't until I had that experience that I finally started to, you know, allow myself to think about myself in that way and kind of explore myself in those ways and open up to those ideas. And I found like the kink community, and I found like a safe place where no one was going to judge me for it, and I could be whoever I wanted to be. And that is what really sparked my transition, because I finally got into a place where I could be exactly who I wanted to be. I could experiment, I could try new things, and I just kind of did a little bit at a time. And I realized, like, okay, I like kind of being femme a little bit, and I just kind of followed it and followed what felt good and kept trying a little bit more and a little bit more. And at a certain point, I was like, well, I guess I need to really reevaluate myself and realize that, you know, I guess I'm trans, and I went to therapy a little bit about it too, just to be sure. And yeah, that's kind of my character arc.
Everybody has one. So Jake, what about you?
What? So you want to hear my journey?
Yes.
My queer journey. So, found out pretty young that I was like gay. I always felt like a little different, you know. And that would have been back like in middle school era. You know, I had started participating in like online forums and like discussions, basically with other like gay men. And I started to realize, I was like, oh, that's who I am. But as I've gotten like older, probably within the last like 3 to 4 years though, I no longer identify as a gay man. I identify as like a queer person. And like the whole pronoun thing for me like is a little weird, because like I am happy with the gender that was given to me. Like I'm okay with that. Like I'm absolutely down for that. But the way that I want to be like seen and represented like in, you know, settings, I don't totally like vibe with being like a man. You know, so like I work in manufacturing and I also work in retail, so I have 2 jobs. And anytime I'm in retail and someone's like, "Thank you, sir," I like recoil. I'm like, don't.
How dare
That's
you refer to me
unacceptable.
as sir?
How dare you? My nails are painted. I have long hair and dangle earrings. This is unacceptable behavior. But like I don't exactly feel that, you know, I would be like trans. I think I'm just in this kind of like almost new weird in between of like I love who like I am, but the way that I'm perceived, I don't as much love, if that makes sense.
It does. I completely understand that.
So that's my journey so far.
A little bit, and I'm going to make this. It's not about me as much as possible, because that's just I don't. But I think that like my journey is very similar to yours, Jake, where it's, you know, I am happy with the parts that God gave me. You know what I mean? And I'm happy with all of those things. But, you know, at the same time, I also don't feel like a man. There are things I enjoy that, you know, are historically, I won't even say historically, but stereotypically female. I love having my nails painted. I love, you know, being able to flip this hair back and forth. You know, the things that make me me aren't necessarily stereotypically male, but I think that, you know, there is, I think, this kind of in between that you can be where between the divine masculine and the divine feminine, you know, there are people who straddle that fence. And I personally believe that when we say you either have to be one or the other, you know, you are limited. You're limiting other people that you don't know, and you don't know what their journey is. But you're also limiting yourself. You know, that's how I feel. You know, you're limiting yourself by saying, hey, you know, I can only be this one thing. And that goes with, you know, being queer. I identify, and it's weird because my family will probably see this, but they don't. I identify, my pronouns that I use are he, they. And because I'm male first. You know what I mean? Like, male first, that's where I'm at. But sometimes there's a little spice in there. It's a little Lowry seasoning salt. You know, it's a little something extra. Yeah, you got a little seasoning. So, I wanted to switch gears a little because we have two cis females in the room, and I wanted to ask them. I know it might seem a little bit weird, but follow this thread with me. How do you feel about the term cisgender or cis woman? And I want to start with you, Ken.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what the term means.
Cis tends to mean that is you are the gender that you were assigned at birth. Usually, in terms of when people will talk about, in mixed both trans and assigned at birth company, they will use the term cis woman or trans woman. And I know a few women who are like, why do I have to have something extra added to my name? I'm a woman. I was a woman. I'm a woman first. Why do I have to be referred to as cis? So that somebody else can be trans. And I've always been like, you don't have to be.
Right.
It's that simple. Like, you can say I'm a woman and let that be the end of it. But I do know that, and especially kind of looking online and seeing one of the people that I follow a lot is T.S. Madison. And she's a trans activist, actress. She's freaking amazing. But she gets this a lot. Anytime she says something that people don't like, it's always, but you's a man. And, and she uses the term cisgendered women. And they're like, well, why do we have to have the extra on the name? Why can't we just be women? And, my thoughts, and then I'm going to let you speak. My thoughts are, at the end of the day, whether you're cis or trans, you're still a woman. So why does it matter? Hope one day we'll get to a point where we don't have to say cis and trans, but we're not there yet. So, the fact that you didn't know what cis meant, it means to me that, like, you don't have no thoughts on it. Okay.
No, I don't. I identify as a woman. I don't feel like I need anything extra, additional added to that. So, and because, like you said, because I've never heard the term before, I'm not offended by it. I can go with or without it, but at the end of the day, I'm a woman. So I guess that's my comment on it.
All right, what about you, Kylie?
I have used it in the past, but mostly because I feel that, like you've kind of said, we're in like an interesting period of time right now where nobody was talking about this 10, 20 years ago. And now we're talking about it. So it makes people comfortable to give labels, like cisgender or transgender, to kind of describe. I've even heard biogender, and I'm like, I've never heard, like, okay.
I'm not sure I like that one.
I know, same. I'm like, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that.
That feels
Sometimes I
vaguely
feel like-
transmedicalist to me.
Yeah.
What?
Honestly, like, that feels vaguely transmedicalist to me.
Kind of, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like that's...
You're not...
And so, like, for me personally, being labeled a cisgender female is fine, and that is mostly because if it makes that person feel comfortable, I'm okay with that, because I feel like we're just now in a place where people are starting to name their feelings and put a name to what they feel inside. So I'm okay with going through this transitional period till we get to the period of time where we can just call it whatever we feel comfortable in the future giving that name, to call whatever, woman or non-binary, whatever.
And I think that's a really important part of it right now for me. And when I had the conversation, with my family, they were like, it's happening so fast and there's so many things and you can't keep up. And I think part of that is this idea that we have names for things. And the example that I gave to them was, 30 years ago, we was just gay. You know what I'm saying? You suck one dick, you a gay dude. You know what I mean? And
except to gay dudes, I want to call that out, because if you're a bi dude who sucked a dick 30 years ago,
you're still a gay dude.
No, not to gay dudes. To gay dudes, you're straight.
Right.
Yeah.
To straight dudes, you're gay. To gay dudes, you're straight. You don't get to date anybody. Everything is awful.
You know, but
I may have some feelings.
You do. we'll get it. I actually want to do a deep dive because your story.
That's literally a whole different discussion, though.
It is
the thing, right? And that's the whole thing, because there's names for it. There's words for these things now.
And then
there's a lot of power, and there's a word for it.
We get the argument of like pansexual versus bisexual and that whole chestnut
right.
too.
Yeah, like there's but those things are all important. You know what I'm saying? Because once you have a name for something, then you can have. There's power in words. There's words mean things.
Can I take back from that? It's not once you have a name for it. Once you have exposure to something. So sure, the word may not be there, but being exposed to someone in that experience will kind of like help shape your perception of that. So
right.
It's
there
not
are
just
two
the
different
word.
angles to that. Now, I really want to jump in hard on that because there are two aspects to this. One is you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Like knowing someone is key and is huge and it makes all the difference in the world. But there's a difference between that and having a word for something. Because if there's a word for something, that means that it's not just this one person that you've met. It's not just this one. Like it is a sufficient experience. It's sufficiently a thing that people talk about it. People talk about it enough that they made a word to define this. So they have that shorthand to say like, no, gender fluid, right? Non-binary, right? Demisexual, right? Like on and on. Demiguys, great. Okay, cool. Like specific subset of like non-binary folks, great. And there's all this nuance and all this stuff because this is what we do. We put labels on things because it helps us. Yeah. Humans think in terms of framing stuff. Humans think in terms of like putting things in categories, not like as like a negative thing, but literally that's how we process reality. And once someone actually has a box, not like a box to trap you in, but like a place to go like, oh, that.
A box to
and when
build
you
off
hear
of.
that word the first time, you go, oh my God, someone has a word for it. Someone has a word for me.
You feel less alone.
But I would hope that that's a jumping off point though, and that initial I've categorized you is not the final destination for people, especially for like the cis, like my side of the things, because I want to make sure that there's a lot of understanding, and not only that, but that there's because the whole thing is comfort, level of comfort, and like you said, very much like you said, Johnny. It's people then when they can give it a name, then they feel more comfortable.
Oh, shit.
Also, the linguistic thing of the cis thing comes from the same place as trans, where trans is across, cis is same.
Same.
Like
Latin.
it's same. Like the whole why can't I just be a woman? I've always been a woman. Well, like that's literally the word.
Yeah.
Cisgender is you stuck with it. Go you.
Like I did. You came. You were a woman, and you stayed there. And I think I really wanted to try to find a trans man to come on here and do this as well, because that experience I think is different. But I don't have a lot of trans men friends, which is weird for me.
I weirdly, if I would have known, if I would have known, I have a really good trans male friend who actually works with me that I could have brought on, and it would have been another great combative to the massive femme energy that we have.
Yeah, there's so much lady energy in this room thing right now. I'm like, yay. But you know me, I love female energy anyway.
There's, if I can plug somebody who's absolutely phenomenal, Traversing Gender is a book written by Lee Harrington, and Lee Harrington love that book. I totally recommend reading it. He talks in depth a little bit, or actually quite a bit, about his journey, transitioning and is now a trans male.
Wow. I mean, yeah, definitely put that. So I'm going to put that in my thing of books to read. So I want to start asking a couple of questions, and some of these questions I know the answers to, but and then I'm going to open the floor up to anyone who has a question about anything. I will ask. I know that I don't have to say it with this group, but I will say it anyway. That we be respectful, and all of that stuff. Don't be.
I brought my daggers, bitch. I'm not here to be respectful.
Don't be a dick. You know what I'm saying? Like,
with daggers.
Yes, girl, they're on my earrings. What do you mean?
Listen,
I came with the dagger.
one thing I tell you about Jake is Jake will come fully strapped. Oh, we really got daggers out today.
Unprepared.
Right. So the question, my first question that I want to ask, and I'm going to open it up to everybody, is: have you had experiences where someone, you met someone whose physical appearance didn't necessarily match their pronouns, and got upset if you misgendered them, and how you felt in that situation? Not how they felt, how you felt.
So everyone fell silent. So I will say I have not actually run into meeting someone that has pronouns that do not match up with what we consider how they appear.
Right.
But I have seen it on a lot of social media. And the thing is, I've seen like both sides of one where the person who has been misgendered gets immediately irate. And like, I get it. I can understand being irate. But I've also seen situations where they don't immediately get irate and they try and like correct the person to be like, hey, this isn't how how I want to be like seen or, talked to as a person. And it's truly like a very like new thing. And we're currently as society transitioning to a new like in between of you can't just like look at someone and assume that you're going to accurately hit the pronouns that
Did
they
you just
are.
assume my gender?
Yeah, like, you can't just. I can't walk out and like, for example, because I mean, for me, I'm a very like mask presenting person, but I
Till
do
you
not
open
wanna
your
be-
mouth and the purse fall out.
Shut up. I don't want to be just immediately assumed that I'm like this total like mask bitch, because I'm not, and I'm not gonna get like mad at someone. But I feel like though if I had gone through this experience for an extended period of time, then I will become less and less okay with immediately being misgendered. So like if I've had to experience this for a lot of time or for like 5 to 10 years, I will no longer have the room for empathy for the other person not understanding. I'm just gonna immediately become upset because like, fuck you. I've been doing this for so long. Like I'm sorry you don't see it, but I see it, and the people around me see it, and it's not my fault that you don't see it. So I will call you out on that. And I think that's kind of like the point that like when you see on social media like these people getting upset about being misgendered is because they've gone through the long periods of time where they have been misgendered, and they've corrected people, they've done their due diligence, and no longer due diligence is owed to strangers.
I'll also call out, because I get this one with some frequency. In all fairness, I'm a walking chaos bubble gender-wise at this point. Like, especially with the mask on, like out in public with no one having any other context for me, 90+% of the time, it's people just assume I'm a woman, like a cis woman. Like, that's just it. Body shape, everything else. Blah, blah, blah. Depending on my mood, that can shift. And my voice, I don't try to like have like a super femme voice. This is just kind of me. But there are people who are in my life, either from work or from personal stuff or anything else, where they, for an extended period of time, would aggressively misgender me. The sir and ma'am's a great example because there's not a neutral sir or ma'am, really. Not in English. Like there isn't one.
There isn't.
And especially like I was raised sirring and ma'aming everybody, just everybody, right? And so like I have a lot of forgiveness for people like reflexively doing that. Watching people who are trying really hard to go like person.
Sir, ma'am.
A whole bunch of gender euphoria. That's that right there, right? Just because it's showing like someone is seeing me actually the way that I want to be seen, right? But when someone does it maliciously, and that's the thing, like on social media, you don't know that's the first time that person's done that.
Yeah.
Right. That could be every time that person comes into their comments, that they're like, oh yeah, hi sir, or blah blah blah, yes ma'am, and whatnot, every time. And like, they're just typing it and you see this just words, everyone who's coming along for the first time and seeing it, but that person hears that tone that I just had.
Right.
And I have nothing for people who do it maliciously, like, but just anger and rage.
Well, like, and I will say, especially with you, Johnny, I had a really hard time squaring the circle, not because I didn't accept who you were.
No, it's just habit. You've known me for
habit.
You've known me for over a decade. My mom's known me for 40 plus years, right? Like, people are going to mess things up.
Yeah.
And I can deal with that, but it's hard. And especially for folks who are actively transitioning, like binary trans folks, I'm talking a lot, so jump on me, pretty please, people. For binary trans people, because there's that point where you go like, I'm done. I am done being this lie. I'm going to be me. Except people, especially if you're medically transitioning, like, you can change all sorts of presentation stuff. You can learn makeup. You can learn mask presentation. You can change things up, learn to redo their voice, all that stuff, and so forth, right? I used to be able to go deeper than that. But
I was like, when I met you, that was how deep your voice was.
Oh, that was my talking voice. Oh yeah, my work voice was actually a little bit lower, and my body language will change if I talk like this too long, stuff like that. But this is my normal talking voice. Like, this is me relaxed. This is not forced. This is nothing like that. But you stop living this lie all the time, right? So it's maddening when people say like, oh, ha ha ha, it's a joke, or it's whatever. And especially if you're I will say, especially, and please chime in anyone else, but like binary trans folks, especially, like, a chunk of this stuff, there's presentation, there's all these other things that you can change about your clothing and makeup and or not makeup and or this, that, and the other. But if you're doing HRT and you're doing all that stuff, that takes time. Like, this is like 2 years. And I look substantially different than I did a few years ago. But like, think how long puberty took the first time. It's not any faster the second.
Because that's essentially what it is. Is it's a second puberty?
No, it is what it is. Like, literally, like, and on top of it, it's undoing changes. Like, your body, it has to undo a bunch of stuff from first puberty, and there's a lot of stuff that doesn't ever change. Like, I will never, thankfully I don't care that much, but I will never have like the higher pitch with resonance that someone who went through like an estrogenic puberty the first time would. Right?
Wait. Actually, vocal training could give you that.
Can give me a dose of it, but not the same. The thing is that, like, a cis woman who did estrogenic puberty the first time will be able to do more with that same voice training, right? And this is, again, like, let me see if I can do that all the way down. I don't think I can without trying. But this is my talking voice day to day. Before, like it's a world of difference between the two. Mm-hmm. I'm having to work really hard to maintain like the masculine tone and pacing to my voice, because that's not where I talk, right? Like, all that for decades was an act, and one that I kept up all day, every day, and it's exhausting.
And I think that's the big thing, the big takeaway that I get from it is like, could you imagine, as you know, as a person, like, literally living in a shell and having to be something that you're not for decades? So you're essentially playing a role forever, you know what I'm saying? And then finally one day you're like, I'm not going to play that role. I'm just going to be me. And whatever that me is what it is. And
overnight your chance of being murdered quadruples.
Oh God, yeah. Listen.
And like, you touched on it earlier, and like, it's all about intent, like how cruel people are, and like, are they doing it on purpose or not? And like, I think people should also have that sensitivity for trans people, right? Like, everyone has their own story, but some people have been through like awful circumstances for years and years and years, and abuse and violence and whatever else they've gone through, and just the mental struggles of coming to terms with who you are and then trying to be that person in whatever, society you're in, like there's trauma there. There's baggage, there's damage, like you don't come through that just perfectly unscathed. And so I think there should be some sensitivity on the other side. I mean, I do think most people that are trans should try and find empathy and try and, be understanding. If people don't know, you educate them and you give people time to transition along with you. And I mean, but after that, fuck it. But
I've always said
I have grace, but it is finite.
Yeah, there's a limit. There's a limit. Like I will, if it's a new person that I've met, I will tell them a couple times, and then we're gonna have a talk if they keep fucking doing it.
Well, to me, I always look at it in terms of how I met you. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, Ken, I'm coming to you because you've been quiet this whole time. So.
You know what? Honestly, this is I'm very, for lack of a better term, ignorant to this subject. So I am here. I'm really absorbing it all because I'm a person that likes to accept people for who they are and strive to understand who people are. So I really don't have an opinion. I find this conversation very interesting because I've never met a person like Johnny. I've never actually talked to Shania. You hear these things and you see it, but you never actually talk to it. So actually, because for me, what I'm seeing, I'm not even seeing how you identify what your pronoun is. I just see a beautiful soul, right? I hear a very intelligent conversation. I hear like a very open and optimistic mind. And so I'm just sitting here like, and then if you could, I'm sitting here, I'm laughing. I'm like, wow, oh, that's interesting. I can relate to that. So my only question, and I don't want to get you off topic, Jason.
No, go for it. That's what you're here for.
My only question is for Shania, is it more of a, even you, Jake, is it more of a feeling that you want to be a woman, or is it more of a knowing that you know that this is who you are, who you're, in your case, Jake, who you're becoming?
Yeah, it's realizing that something doesn't fit, right? Something's off. Something like you've got this general discontent with like there's that something isn't lining up, that something just doesn't make sense and doesn't fit. And over time you can figure out what that is. And you just realize that you're not who you were told you are. And it's who you are. Like it's a feeling deep in your soul. Like it's not, so many times we try and attach like being transgender or being non-binary to all these like surface level things. Like I like to paint my nails and I like to wear dresses and things like that. And like we like attach it to that easy, simple thing, right? Just because that's our just human monkey brains, like trying to make a square out of it. But it's a much deeper concept. It's a feeling. It's where you're coming from as a person. It's your attitude towards the world. It's how you want to be seen. It's how you see the world. It's how you see yourself. So, I mean, it's in this deeply, it's like we were talking about earlier, like, I'm a woman. I am a woman. It's the same kind of thing. It's that feeling of knowing who you are. And that butting up against what society and your parents and your family and everyone else is telling you you're supposed to be. And it's like having the strength to try and push through that and just be who you are, damn everyone else. And yeah.
I love
You're awesome.
And that actually brings me to kind of the second thing I wanted to talk about in this, when it relates to trans, because I've always, when I explain to people, because some, when you do the work that I do, you run into a bunch of different people with a bunch of different mindsets, and this idea that I am now the dictionary for all things LGBT, and I'm like, I'm not, but I do my best. I try, because I'd rather you leave with some knowledge than none. And so the way that I explain, gender dysphoria or things to people is that sex and gender are two different things. Sex is the physical body in which you are inhabiting. and gender is in the brain. And so when you ask the question, is it something that you feel or something that you know? To me, it's like you can feel. It's both. You feel and know. Okay, what's out here isn't matching what's happening in here. And
may I steal the floor for just a sec?
yes, you may have the floor.
Okay, my microphone was like fucked up, so I was trying to like stop you before this. Since specifically, I was also asked like about my experience with this. Like, I don't like. A lot of things that I've been told should be considered only for like women or like only for those that are female, are things that I have honestly always wanted to do, but I've never been able to fucking like express. Like I was never allowed to like do these things. I was never allowed to grow out my hair. I was never allowed to have piercings. I was never allowed to fucking paint my nails because the environment that I was raised in saw these as specifically only for like women. So like only those that were like cisgendered women could do, or not even transgender women, because they wouldn't consider those like real women. Like this right. For me, like I'm in this like, I don't think I'm trans. I mean, like I might be, but I have a handful of trans friends and I've like talked to them about like my experiences and like the way that I'm feeling about things. And they're like, no, you're not. You're just going through this like exploratory period of how I want to be perceived. Like it's literally how I want to be seen by other people. And like I'm like, yeah, sure, like I'm happy with myself at the end of the day, but I also want other people to like see me in this like certain way. Like I want to extrude these like feminine qualities, these like, let me do this, feminine qualities, these feminine traits. No, these are just traits that are me. They aren't like explicitly fucking feminine. It's just things that I want to do, but society has put these labels on it that it is feminine. Only people of the feminine traits do this shit. And
right.
I mean, it's not like so.
And that's a big difference between, what is it? So me, aggressively non-binary, very much neither of those things, right?
Yeah,
not a girl, not a guy, done and done. But like people also lose track that like, and this is really important and really valid, is like gender non-conforming folks are a thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and that's perfectly fine. Like, and it can also be confusing, and it can also make things harder because you're trying to figure out, like, am I gender non-conforming? Am I non-binary? Am I something else? Am I actually trans and just trying to hide that from myself? Am I? So the more that you get, again, there are. It sure is easier for people who are binary, whatever.
Yeah.
Whether you're binary and cisgender, binary trans. It's a lot cleaner. Like if you know in 100%, like you're just like, no, this is, we're good. I might have some stuff that's different or this, that, or the other, but like, I'm good. Awesome. And envy.
Right?
And like, I love who I am, to be clear. I would not change anything about me. But there is envy on the whole, like, no, girl, not like the real life comics, as a side note, fantastic webcomic. Maydeen is the person who writes it, and she came out as trans a couple of years ago, and this amazing arc when she brought the comic back to life after it had been shut down for a few years, like in tears reading it. Good, loved it. I just completely lost my track. Dang it! I got thinking of this freaking arc from the comic and like just completely
derailed the whole train.
Johnny, can I ask you a question, Johnny?
Sure.
Because you said something that really makes me think. So you said you kind of, and forgive me if I'm quoting you incorrectly, a little bit of envy with regards to the conforming gender identities, so to speak. Does that stem from the fact that we're labeling people too much, or like?
No,
I feel okay.
It's actually almost it's not like a labeling thing. It's the fact that when you're somewhere in the middle, right? You've got to figure out where that is. And for me, also, just I'm older, like I'm pushing 50, right? So like estrogen is a magical drug. The but like it takes time when you've got to sort out, like to Jake's, like you've got to sort out, like, you know, okay, am I like non-binary? Am I like a demi guy, like kind of in the middle, but like always guy, but only kind of? Am I just like a cisgender dude who's also very strongly gender non-conforming? Am I also like binary trans in denial because that's legit too, and vice versa? And or am I just someone who's like just real, like, again, the gender non-conforming? Am I just someone who's really strongly presenting something else, right? And you have to sort all that out, and it takes time, and it's hard, and it's hard. The more that people throw stumbling blocks and stuff in front of you, the harder it gets. The rougher the places where you grow up. I have 2/3 of my family I haven't spoken to in years. I grew up around a bunch of folks where I can tell you for a fact I would have been, if I had been straight up out at the time, a decent chunk of my extended family would beat me possibly to death.
Oh my gosh.
That's existing.
Yeah.
As a trans kid, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just existence.
Well, even still, sadly, to this day, like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's still still a thing that's happened, and I think that part of, because I went through, I'm happy with my body. Well, I mean, if I could get this belly to go away just a little bit more, I'd be even better. But you know, like I'm happy with the parts that I have. You know what I mean? I don't ever want to get rid of. You know, I don't want boobs because it feels like it's a lot of work. You know what I'm saying? I just see that shaking and bouncing, and I'll be like, your back just looked like it hurt. I can't do it. You know, and I enjoy, you know, my friend downstairs. But, you know, I did go through a period, and I think part of me is still kind of going through this period where I'm playing with gender. You know, I'm playing with gender, not necessarily my gender identity, but my gender presenting. You know what I mean? Like, I'll be like, oh, well, you know, I got a pair of heels that, like, every once in a while I'll put on, and, you know, they give you a full walk down the street, you know what I'm saying, to let them hoes have it. But, you know, it doesn't change the fact that at the end of the day, I'm still male. You know, it's just, these are things that I tell people I'm 40 years old, I can do what the hell I want to now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
the only thing that I would, like, posit on this is, because sadly I started this, was don't just apply gender identity to the sexual parts that you have, you know, because you can identify as, like, I could identify as a woman and still have a penis. Like, that's kind of like outside of the scope of just being like what your gender identity is. Because, for example, like, I feel super femme, but I'm very happy with the sexual reproductive organs that I was given, but that doesn't mean that I don't still want to be femme and be seen as like a femme person.
Oh no, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. And I think, I don't know how much Johnny wants to get into his personal life, you know, but especially in this forum. But you know, we've talked about that. You know, we've had conversations about, you know, that particular portion of it, and I don't necessarily, again, because sex and gender are two different things. I completely understand, you know, where you're coming from on that, but I think when you are talking with people who, and we are, you know, and this isn't for people who know, you know, how to talk about gender. You know what I mean? Like, this is for people who, that is their basis, is the outside parts are what is inside. And so that's a lot of where these conversations come from, because when you think about it, you know, if you're someone who, like Kendall, doesn't, like, you don't know anyone who's trans, you know, now you do, but you don't really know anyone who's trans, that's immediately where the mind
Well,
goes.
see, that's the other thing is like a lot of times that's assuming there's people who are out, and this is part of the reason I'm like super vocal about being out, right? Like I actively talk about this stuff. I will jump in and make my feelings known to people in conversation because again, if I'm out in public and someone doesn't look too close to my IDs, I just pass when I want to, right? There are plenty of people who just go stealth and that's all they want. They don't want to be an activist. They don't want to tell their story over and over again. They don't want to justify their existence.
It's exhausting.
Right? They want to go and live their life. They're a trans woman, and 99% of the time, they're just a woman. The only time that they're a trans woman is at the doctor's office because it impacts care, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, most cisgender women are not going to have a prostate. Some will. Intersex is a thing. Somewhere around 1 in 60 people has a jumbling up of all this stuff. It is nowhere near as cut and dried. Again, it's 8th grade biology, right? You see that all the time, like, oh, it's 8th grade biology, man and woman. It's like, yes, but like freshman in college biology is not that. In fact, like sophomore in high school biology is not that. You're right. It's 8th grade biology. It's vastly simplified and leaves out a lot.
That's when everyone stops taking biology classes.
Right? And so like if you actually did things like take up through college level biology, if you take genetics, if you take phenotypical biology and biological analysis stuff, you know this stuff. And it's just like, well, yeah, okay, sure. But it's not the same thing. So actually that was actually a big loop way back to an earlier comment about where it's important on the trans versus cis gender thing. Is medical care is a big important one,
Right.
Like, no matter whatever else, my chance of breast cancer is now considerably higher than it was 5 years ago, right? Like I have to be legally in the state of Missouri because of how they require things and the fact that it is male and female exclusive and requires bottom surgery to change, or a doctor knows more hoops to jump through and lawyer work and all this stuff. Not worth my time to change my gender marker to female. It's also still inaccurate and I refuse to lie. So there you go. I'm looking forward to sometime later this year when I can get a passport that has a nice little X on it. It's coming. And then I will have both, and I'll have that, right? So that'll become my daily thing for anything that's not driving related. That's my ID, be my passport card. But my driver's license, as long as I live in this state until something dramatic changes, it's going to say I'm on it. Right. Time. There's a lot of things that ain't happening here until they do. But when I say time, I'm talking like decades, not years.
Right. And so...
And just to kind of touch on medical care and on like different sex and gender, that was one of the things that really kind of blew my mind when I first went to therapy as a little baby train, not knowing what the fuck I was doing. My therapist said to me that transitioning is unique to every individual. You don't have to have surgery. You don't have to medically transition at all. You don't even have to go on hormone. And like that just blew my mind open because like I had explored a little bit on my own and decided that I was trans and, come to the realization that I was trans. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I have to do the thing now. I have to work on going, getting surgery and top and bottom and HRT and the whole 9 yards. And it just never occurred to me that wasn't necessarily like a requirement. Like that's not like I have to go have surgery to be a legit trans woman, like to get my little ID card. Like it's not.
They handed in the mail. Congratulations, you're trans.
Yeah. The whole point is being comfortable in your own skin. Like what is fulfilling to you, what makes sense to you, what feels right to you. And some people don't even go on hormones. Like some people just adjust the way that they present themselves to the world and find their happy place. Some people need cosmetic surgery and need to go all the way and do everything they can to get to a place where they're
6+ figures to get this done.
Yeah,
that's what it takes. Not free, and insurance does not cover a lot of this.
Yeah, it's not cheap, and I mean, a lot of insurance doesn't even cover it. It just depends on what state you're in, what insurance you have. Like, it's very hit or miss. It's very hard for trans people to get the gender affirming care on higher levels. I mean, hormones isn't
Trans folks getting top surgery
yeah.
is frequently, no matter, even if you have a gender dysphoria diagnosis, if you got all the other stuff, they'll cut a lot of, not always, but in a lot of places and a lot of insurance, they'll cover the bottom surgery because that's the genital stuff, and that is gender confirming. But the top surgery, nah, that's cosmetic.
Yeah.
That's actually one of so I'm friends right now with a queer trans male, and currently he's dealing with his insurance company not wanting to cover the top surgery because it's seen as a cosmetic thing. And like he'll just sit there and tell me, he's like, I have diagnosed gender dysmorphia. Like, why is this such a fight? And the only reason that like something is happening now is because the doctors that he's seen for X amount of years are like, no, this needs to be taken care of, and we can make this happen through your insurance. But like the fact that you have to go through extra steps to make that happen, like why is that the norm? Why is that the norm?
That's because a chunk of that, I'm going to say straight up, is also because of generally the way that women are treated in the medical system in the sense of not really being listened to, and like their rights and privileges being subservient to, as multiple trans masc friends of mine have run into, of the doctors who are gatekeeping. It's like, well, yeah, but what if you want to have kids? They're like, well, I don't. It doesn't matter. And they're like, but what if you marry a guy and he wants to have kids?
We're going to have to find somebody else then.
Right? And like, it's like, okay.
So presuming to say.
But it's a really big thing though. Like even just in women's
care, like if you want.
Oh, I know.
They know.
Yeah, I was like, this is the choir we're preaching to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I found out that in order for a woman to get her tubes tied, and so that it was a permanent birth control, they would have had to have kids before, or have permission from their husband before they could actually do that. To me, I was like, what? But that's a whole
chunk of that.
Go ahead.
There is a chunk of that for trans femme folks too. Like it's not as severe and it's not as extreme, but it is still there. Like orchiectomy, like they do the whole thing of like, oh, but what if you want to have kids? It's like, number one, you can free sperm, but like there's a whole thing of like, there are sucky things about transitioning later in life, but there are the upsides of, there are things that I can just throw money at. Laser, I just paid for it. Like it's like, oh, this is like thousands of dollars. Fuck it, I'm done. Pay it. Here you go. And I just paid cash for it. Get it done.
Listen, some of us ain't able.
But the other part of it is, right? I put up with a lot of crap for a long time.
You did.
Right? But the other part of this is that, like, I'm married. I am married. I have kids. We're not planning on to have more kids. We're at the age where people go like, no, we're done having kids, right? So like when they have the discussions like, well, you might want kids. It's like, well, we got those covered. Check. All done. And they go like, oh, okay, cool.
See, and that was the thing that I was going to ask you about, and we're gonna wrap up in just like 5 minutes. Give us like 5 more minutes. I promise. I know I said 8 to 9, but this is something that I think is really is. I'm glad that you brought up the fact that you're married and have kids, because it is to like, and that you transitioned later in life. Because what was, and I know this question, I know the answer to this, but like, obviously your transition affected someone else and other people, and so what was that like, and how did you A, have the conversation with your wife, and B, have the conversation with your kids that this is something that I was going to do, that you needed to do for yourself?
So I'll say, like, my kids are younger. Like, I don't have like adult kids or anything like that, right? Younger kids are easy. Younger kids don't have all the filters and stuff until you teach them to them. You just say like, cool, this is just how I am. They go, okay. My younger kid has at least 2 non-binary kids in their class. Not to mention a couple of people who are very overt, like not overtly identifying as lesbians, bisexual, and so forth and so forth on at their tween years, because again, people are like, oh, but you don't know these things till you're like in puberty and this and that. It's like, yeah, because no one has crushes when they're a little kid. No one has like the whole I'm going to grow up and marry so and so as a little kid, because there's a big social chunk of this too. Kids do this, right? It's always there, and the gender part's always there. Did you ever, like, for y'all cis ladies, did you ever have any doubts when you were a kid that you were a girl? Because I had all sorts of like, I don't understand how this guy thing works. I don't get it. Right? Like I did not, okay, also autistic, but like not connected to the guy thing. Right? But so like there, for a lot of kids, it's just like, oh, okay, I have words for it. I can put a label on it. You're this thing. All right, cool. Fine. Can we get on with life now? So kids are easy. My wife's not straight, so that also helps. So there wasn't a whole lot of discussion. But one of our big things is like, we talk a lot. Like we constantly communicate, and like where we're at, things are that are hard right now, things that are good right now, like in our lives with each other, everything else. We talk constantly. So like my whole journey, like decade plus, like all that, like she's been along the whole way. Right? Like there was no, for me, there was no big talk because she's my best friend. And like, of course I'm talking to her about this stuff. So, and I'm super lucky, super lucky in this, because I've had this like super supportive spouse. Like by the time that I was like out with some of this, like it was, my friend group had already been pared down from all the transphobic shit stains. Because I have trans friends, right? And we just like, okay, cool, you can't deal, get out. And like that had happened years and years before. So like I didn't lose current friends over this. My work is really supportive of it, not super supportive, but like HR wise is perfectly dandy with all this. Cool. So work's been actually solid. Like my professional stuff is still solid, barring the whole being more firm presenting, and that makes things harder when you're trying to actually make people listen to you in an office environment, because it does. Yep. Shouldn't,
because now you're more firm presenting, and now you're playing office politics as a woman.
Oh, it's really kind of fun. I don't do it that much anymore because it doesn't really trick my dysphoria much anymore. Now it's just kind of weird, feels weird to me. But like I've actually done things multiple times, like in the last few months, even of times where people keep walking over me and I'll just shift my voice down and I'll just start talking like this, and like just shift the presentation, shoulders down. I'm listening like a whole pile of muscle mass and other stuff, but I'll switch to this.
Done. Like it just works,
right?
Like...
And then all of a sudden, everyone goes bloop in the gear shift.
Yeah, drop to a full-on mask.
Right?
Yeah, bro.
It is creepy how fast people just shift. Like, and like that's been that way for years for me at this point, but like it is substantial.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, this could have been another whole hour and we wouldn't have even scratched the surface, but thank you so much to all of you guys that were here. I want to give you guys each a second to give some final thoughts. And I hope that we can come back and do this again. Have like a round 2 and just keep talking about, because I think the more we talk about, stuff like this, the easier it is to have these conversations in our personal lives. And maybe find questions and ask questions that that you may have always wanted to know the answer to. We didn't really get to a lot of questions today, but I think this discussion was absolutely amazing. And Johnny, Ken, Kali, Shania, Jake, thank you so much for coming with me on this journey. I'm going to start with you, Johnny. Give us a couple of final thoughts. You're muted.
You're right. Crap, I've been doing too many thoughts already. This is not my forte. So quick final thought, I guess. This is a conversation that obviously I can talk about for a long time. And I'm sure pretty much everyone here can too. I'm just a mad rambler, so I freely admit. But the conversation is worth having for its own sake. And helping people understand themselves and others better is one of the best things ever. So,
Jake.
Me?
So Jake.
You want me next?
Yes.
Okay. My final statement would be just more so, explore yourself. Push these social boundaries that you think have been put on you. And at the end of the day, you're going to end up finding a community that you will resonate with. And I'm actually in a very comfortable spot with a community, because as a listener, look at the group that I'm with right now. This is family. I don't even know half these bitches. No, you will always just try and be as true to yourself as you can, because at the end of the day, we're all fucking people, and we're just trying to make it through the day. And this is where me making it through the day has brought me, and I would not be anywhere else right now. I'd prefer, this is where I want to be.
I want some more money, but you're right.
Capitalism, you're great. Fuck off.
Kylie.
I'm a firm believer that your dollars speak word, or speak high volumes about who you are. So if I can support a product, Night of Mystery, they are a murder mystery company, and they have all gender neutral roles. They don't necessarily do the traditional male or female. So if you ever want to host a good time, nightofmystery.com. They're very very LGBTQ friendly.
So
places if you ever want to have a fun party.
I'm so excited about it, but we're gonna shut up.
Okay.
I'm so excited about it, but we're gonna shut up. Ken, I'll go with you.
I'm gonna say that we're all unique in our own individual way, and so it's important to know that only you can do what you can do the way that you do it. So continue to embrace it, continue to educate about it, continue to enlighten others about it, and continue being who you know that you are deep down in your soul.
Love it. And finally, Shania.
Well, one thing I just wanted to talk about a little bit, and Ken, you kind of touched on this earlier, is a lot of this misunderstandings and not understanding people of different gender presentations comes from lack of exposure. And so I encourage everyone that's watching to just make an effort to expose yourself more, make an effort to learn, make an effort to listen to conversations like this. Another thing that I'll plug is there's a really good show on Netflix called Disclosure that talks about trans representation in media and how it has evolved and how it's rapidly evolved in the last 5-8 years, where there's actually solid, realistic trans representation in media. And you'll realize that a lot of your misconceptions and a lot of your just ideas of what gender is and what being transgender is comes from these just super limited, it's what the media tells you and it's what you've been shown on TV. And so to break out of that, you just need to, I encourage people to expose themselves more and just take the time to learn, take the time to listen, and just learn about where people are coming from and how they live their lives and, their self-conception. And you'll kind of get a better feel for yourself as well along the way. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys again. Thank you guys so much who have been watching over in our YouTube and on our Facebook. If you would like to, and you're on our YouTube, make sure that you guys are liking and subscribing to the YouTube channel. I hate doing that. I know I have to do it, but
Click subscribe.
Hit the bell icon too.
hit the bell icon.
Click
but-
subscribe.
Definitely make sure you are subscribing to the KCAPC YouTube channel. Thank you all so much for letting me be the person to host this conversation, and let's do this again sometime. And everyone have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Yes,
Love you all. Mwah.